and they have so far found very little. The burning wreckage continues to burn in the water, but it is sinking now into the water as the glow begins to go down some.
Okay.
They have had no help out there from nature. We spoke about that earlier. There's no moon out there to help them. They are relying on their searchlights, and so far those searchlights have turned up nothing.
Thank you, Jim.
If you joined us late, we are reporting the crash of a TWA jetliner with 281 people aboard in a fireball moments after taking off for Paris, and it plunged into the waters off Long Island on Wednesday night. You see on the map approximately where it went in the Mauritius Inlet, just off the Mauritius Inlet, something like 10 miles off the Mauritius Inlet. 281 people aboard, something like 32 crew and 249 passengers, and they were headed for Charles de Gaulle Airport. Plane crashed or exploded or did whatever happened at about 8:30 this evening.
We want to offer you again the passenger hotline number. It's 1-800-438-9892. Again, the hotline number 1-800-438-9892. We do know that family members are going to JFK Airport. About 10 family members have arrived at the airport. And we have Jack Walsh with us this evening.
Former 747 pilot.
747 pilot, now retired.
Jack,
and Bill, go ahead.
One thing that has been brought up, and I know people say the TWA does a fine job in maintaining older aircraft. If this was a 747-100, which means, if I understand correctly, it was manufactured something like 1971 or 72. Is that too old for a plane?
I don't believe so, Bill, because the airplane goes through so many checks and rechecks during its lifetime that when it goes every 10,000 hours, it's getting a complete refurbishing, and that airplane is literally torn apart. And there are certain parts on all airplanes, but just about every part has a time factor on it, and whether that part is functioning or not, when the time factor comes up, off it comes, and it's replaced. And the work they do on that is very. The mechanics are all excellent mechanics. They're well trained. They know their job, and to put a mechanical factor in there, it's hard to say it, but you can't rule it out, unfortunately.
Jack, we were talking with Mr. Sullivan a moment ago, our retired air traffic controller, about what the pilot would have been doing at about the point he was at 10,000 feet. And I don't know if I'm using the correct terminology, but was he on autopilot at that point?
Chances are they were.
Yeah. That soon after taking off?
Oh, yeah. Depending on the pilot, I like to take them up pretty high flying it myself. I knew the airplane could fly. I have to still learn, you know. But the thing is that when he took off from Kennedy, he was on the tower frequency, and then he went over to departure control, and then he went over to air departure to air traffic control, which you refer to as Dracon, and they put him on a heading and up to an altitude. And he'd be flying along at that point, not necessarily you're not talking to the controllers constantly. As a matter of fact, they'd be checking amongst themselves, the engineer and the first officer and captain. And that would be the extent of the conversation. Now, of course, the autopilots can generally can be put on, generally above 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet. So he was up a good 5,000 or 7,000 feet, I think. At that
you're looking on the monitor at what we believe to be the burning remains of this aircraft. What goes through your mind when you look at that?
Horror.
Horror?
Yeah, that's from what's his name? I'm sorry. A guy
Jim Dolan.
Jim Dolan.
Jim Dolan was saying
in the helicopter.
Now I know what that is. That's probably the fire from the airplane itself, and more so over here. And yeah, it means that if that's burning as fiercely as it is on the water, it means that a lot of people, unfortunately, were part of that tragedy.
Thank you, Jack. We want to go now to Eddie Aruza, who is at JFK Airport for us tonight. Eddie, any new information at this hour?
Diana, we are still awaiting more word from TWA at this time, and so far we have gotten none. The last information that we received was about 45 minutes ago, which we covered live. That was Mike Kelly, who is a staff vice president of operations for TWA here at Kennedy. We were informed that perhaps around 12:30 or 1 o'clock they would have some new information. We we are awaiting that word. So far, here is what they told us. The plane, the 747, had come in from Athens, Greece, about 3 hours before it took off, around 8 o'clock, between 8 and 8:15 this evening. The rundown of numbers of passengers on board were that there were 29 in first class and 183 in the other sections of the plane. There were 3 cockpit crew members and 14 flight attendants aboard for a total of 229. Now, so far, the only thing that they could tell us at the time was that the plane was lost from radar screens at around 8:40. As we have been reporting, there was no distress signal sent from the plane. They could not tell us, of course, at this point exactly what it was or what they believe happened. As I said, we are still awaiting more word from TWA, and we hope to bring that to you as soon as we get it, hopefully within the next half hour or so. Back to you.
Eddie, you had mentioned earlier about this high security alert. Is that currently at the airport right now in effect?
Diana, I believe that is over where Jade Dapper is. That is at the terminals where family members and friends are arriving at this hour, and from where the plane departed. There are sections that are cordoned off. When we arrived, we were told that the TWA computer system had been locked down, that there was no information to be gotten or to be given over there, and it's over here that we're awaiting word.
Okay.
We want to point out something. We've been talking about the fact that there was no distress call from TWA Flight 800. We are very reluctant to make any suppositions about what that means, but the FAA is not reluctant to make an explanation. They say that means there are only 2 possibilities for what happened tonight over Mauritius out in the Atlantic Ocean. Either there was an explosive device on board Flight 800, or it was a mid-air collision, and everybody that we have talked to this evening says it is not likely to have been a mid-air collision. Jack Walsh, do you think it could have been a mid-air collision?
I would rule it out because with the radar protection and control that we have out over the water at that time that Mr. Sullivan was alluding to before, the pilots there should have been warned about any other aircraft transgressing that area. And I don't believe that it would be in midair. If it were in midair and to have this happen the way it did, it would have to be an airplane coming right into the cockpit and wiping out the crew.
Why is that?
Well, the airplane, for the airplane to come down like that, the crew would have to have lost its power to control the aircraft.
Yeah. In other words, a mid-air collision would have normally been expected to allow a little bit of time for the
I would say with the size of the 747, and of course, depending on the airplane that would have collided with it, I would say that the smaller airplane would have taken a real beating. The 747 would have given a little bit of a respite in there, but for how long, I don't know. And the explosion factor, again, like when I'm looking at right now, when you monitor it, that's really burning. They've got the whole airplane there right now, and Jim is probably looking at that. But no, I wouldn't rule out. You can't rule out anything really, but I would say it'd be one of the things I would think about in the distant future.
Jack, I do want to point out what you're looking at was taped earlier. Newscopter 7 has gone down to refuel. We certainly want them to take all their safety precautions up there, and they are in need of fuel at this hour, so they're refueling, and we'll have them back up there again very shortly. But this, what you're seeing now, recorded earlier, I believe this was about 11:20 this evening that we were seeing all of these flames at the site, which is about 35 minutes ago.
That's probably all over with then.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
We were seeing some flame just a little while ago.
It's a little smaller than that, but I don't think the fire has stopped.
Yeah. To put some perspective on a bit of this, we want to mention that the last major aviation disaster in that same area would have been the 1990 Avianca airline crash, and that was, as you might recall, on the North Shore of Long Island. There were 73 people that died in that crash. And Bill, I know you'll remember that the problem that night was that the pilot of the Avianca jet failed to alert flight controllers that he was low on fuel, and in effect the jet was running on empty, and it came down near several homes right on the Cove Neck hillside. Investigators said pilot training was at fault, and there were also apparently some language difficulties. The pilot failed to declare an emergency and had to make an immediate landing, and again there were 73 people that died in that crash. The deadliest air disaster in U.S. history was back in 1979. That was when a DC-10 crashed on takeoff at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. 273 people were killed in that crash, and of course, we certainly all are very familiar with the Florida Value jet crash. That was a DC-9, and speculation in that crash is that the oxygen canisters in the cargo hold on that jet somehow caught fire and that there was a fire on board.
We're going now to Cynthia Bauchi, who's in North Patchogue on Long Island. Cynthia, good evening.
Good evening.
I should say good morning, I guess, but
Yeah.
you're in North Patchogue. Is that where you were when the collision, or not the collision, when the tragedy happened?
No, we had decided to go to South Haven Park with the kids to see the ducks. And I guess that's north of Sunrise Highway by
Right.
Shirley. And we looked in the sky and we seen this huge ball of fire. It looked like fireworks. And then we seen two huge flames coming down, and then it went past the trees.
Did you hear any noise?
We didn't hear any noise. If it was by Marich's, we had to be about 15 miles away.
Cynthia,
we have to interrupt you, and we thank you for talking to us, but we do have the governor on the phone with us right now. Governor Pataki, are you there?
Yes, I am there.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Governor. What can you tell us is the state doing right now?
Well, we're trying to do three major things. First of all, we have aircraft over the scene helping the Coast Guard. We have the Air National Guard 106th Search and Rescue Team out there. They're prepared to do everything from dropping life rafts into the water to actually lowering people if by some miracle survivors were still found. And we're not going to give up hope until every last effort has been made. On the ground, we have the National Guard and the state police working with county officials to coordinate all the relief efforts and to support the volunteers and the Red Cross and the others and the emergency services that are out there helping. And then at JFK, we've directed the Port Authority to provide all the help and support to the family and the friends of those who are on Flight 800, working with TWA to provide counseling and support and help.
Governor, are you getting any indication tonight about what caused this disaster? And we are certainly hearing the possibility that there was an explosion on board.
Not at this point. We just don't have an indication as to what the cause was. I don't want to speculate. We're all concerned about the possibilities, but all I can say is that the Port Authority is at the highest possible level of alert, looking for all possible risks that could be involved, and the investigation itself will be conducted by the federal government, and obviously everything we can do to be of assistance in that investigation.
This sounds, Governor, as if it's going to be a massive rescue and aid operation. Am I correct in that? Of course.
Well, Bill, absolutely. It is a major search and rescue operation right now. We're just hoping against hope that somehow there could be survivors turning up, and obviously that's the first priority. After that, determining the cause and dealing with that. And the federal government will take the lead in investigating the cause, but whatever we can do to be of assistance, we will. And certainly, we don't want to forget the family and friends of those who are on the flight, and whatever we can do in the way of support, help, counseling, we're going to be doing.
You mentioned the federal government. Has the federal government been notified? I assume it's been notified. Has it done anything or indicated what
the Coast Guard has taken charge of the scene, and the federal transportation authorities, the emergency transportation people are on the way. I don't know if they're on the site yet, and they will conduct their thorough investigation looking into the cause. And we're all concerned, but I don't want to speculate at this point. All I want to do is make sure the state does everything in our power to try to search, in the slim chance there might be a survivor, provide whatever help we can to the family and friends of those who are on the flight, and make sure that the groundwork, the disaster team that is on the ground gets as much help from the state as possible.
Governor, certainly the speculation, and I go back to this tonight, has been of a possible explosion on board. We certainly don't know what could have caused that, but what can you do to reassure travelers tonight who might be going out to the airport either today, tomorrow, whenever?
Well, Diana, the only thing I can say is that we have the highest possible level of alert at our airports. Every security measure that can reasonably be taken is being taken, and we will continue to do that. This is something that after what happened in Saudi Arabia, and even dating back to the attack on the World Trade Center, has resulted in us raising the level of alert and the level of security at our airports and public buildings in the city and state. And we will continue to do everything we can in the way of security.
Governor, I know that
Excuse me, Bill, I'm sorry. I want to clarify something. Do you have other buildings on high alert?
No, it's not
Is that
like,
what you're saying? No.
Diana, I don't want to mislead and say that we have a particular threat to a facility or not. We just are on a very high level of alert, the highest possible level of alert, and will continue to be so for the near future.
But
we don't know the cause of this. I don't, at this point, want to speculate on the cause. I'm confident that the federal officials will determine that cause as quickly as possible. All we can do at this point is as much support in the way of search, in the way of rescue if possible, and help to the family and friends.
Right, Governor, but I'm going back to just clarify. The high alert is only at the airport. Are you saying that other New York landmarks are on high alert as well?
For more than a year, the state has been working with federal officials and city officials to do everything we can, and we will continue to do that.
Governor, I know you don't want to speculate, and I'm not trying to push you into speculation. That's the last thing we need right now. The fact remains, however, that other people are speculating that this was an explosive device, because most people who know say it was not likely to have been a mid-air collision. Given that, how do you avoid answering my kind of question about speculation?
Well, Bill, the only thing I can say is that whether the speculation is founded or not, what we can do at the state level is be at the highest possible level of alert, and we are. So I hope that the speculation turns out to be unfounded. But whether or not it is, we are at the highest possible level of alert. We will continue to be there, and along with being whatever help we can in the search and rescue operation and support for the families, which we will do, we will just continue to be at the highest possible security level the state can be at.
And Governor, your understanding is that they're going to be searching all through the night to the extent that they can with searchlights and helicopter?
Yes, that's right. I understand that some of the planes have been up for almost 3 hours now and cannot continue over the site throughout the night. They might have to break to change crews and be refueled, but my understanding is that the search operation will continue as long as possible.
And one last question, Governor. Do you have any plans to visit the airport or perhaps that area of Long Island?
Yes, I will be out there, and I would hope by early morning to be able to be on there.
And will you be at JFK, or will you be out on Long Island?
I will be out on Long Island, and we will probably be making a stop at JFK as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Governor, for joining us this evening.
N.J. Burkett is fairly near, not where the governor is, but where the rescue operation has begun and is being centered at the Air National Guard in West Hampton Beach. N.J., are you there?
Yes, Bill, the 106th Air Rescue Group of the Air National Guard. This is in West Hampton, Long Island. As you can see behind me, this is a C-130 that is all set to go. There is another one next to it, another one next to that. At this point, Bill, there are no reports of survivors at this point. We're told, in fact, that the 106th has been told to prepare to set up a makeshift morgue here. They are in the process of doing that. Joining us now with more information on all of this is Colonel Anthony Cristiano, who is the Director of Support for the 106th. And Colonel, if you can explain to me right now, what are the conditions out there? What are your people up against?
Right now, it is a total team effort with ourselves, the Coast Guard, the Suffolk County Police Department, New York City Police Department, various other agencies together, searching the area, trying to find the bodies or any survivors, I should say.
No reports at this point, Colonel, of survivors?
None whatsoever this time, presently.
All right. What do you have out there? What are the search conditions? That's been a question that we've been asking all night.
Right now, C-130's out there dropping flares, trying to keep the area lit so they can search.
And those are all the lights that we're seeing now. You can see the live picture now, Colonel. Those are the lights that we're looking at now. Those are flares to some... All right, those are tape pictures, I'm told, of the scene. And those are flares and also recreational and commercial
Yes,
boats?
I would say it's a number of different things between the flares, between the lights of the boats. There are probably searchlights off the boats and the Coast Guard cutters looking the area over trying to find survivors.
But so far, no survivors?
So far, we heard nothing about any survivors at all at this present time.
Now, one of the difficult things about the search that's ongoing now is that there is no moon out there. It's a new moon, so you don't have light from the moon.
That is correct, and that's why, again, with the 130 is configured to drop flares in a situation like that. That's part of our normal training and part of our normal procedures to drop flares to light an area up for a search.
All right, now, Bill and Diana, there's a very important point that the Colonel just mentioned to me just moments before we went live here from West Hampton, and that is that, to the best of the Colonel's knowledge, there was a C-130 that was flying a training mission in this area. and apparently that C-130 crew noticed an explosion apparently over the Moriches area. Describe to me what they saw.
What they saw was two fireballs ascending to the to Earth. That's exactly what they saw. No other details than that. That's what the crew explained to me, as the best of their knowledge. It's two fireballs descending.
And Jay?
Yes, sir.
As a matter of interest, the C-130s fly over that area very, very frequently on those training missions. Now, do we understand from your guest and yourself that those additional 3 C-130s are going to be used this evening to go out to the scene again with flares and so on?
That's right. And as I set the scene for you a couple minutes ago, Bill, we've got one C-130 here, Colonel, and correct me if I'm wrong. We've got another C-130 that's behind that, another C-130 that's just behind that one. We've got 3 more that are ready to go.
Right, and we'll be launching more aircraft later on this morning out there, too, as we need. It's pretty crowded out there right now, too, and they're trying to keep the area open. We could cause another accident right now, the way things are out there between ships and aircraft.
Okay, NJ, thank the Colonel for us, please, if you could. Stay put. We want to go to J.D. Dapper, who is live for us at JFK Airport. He has more for us on the victims' families. J.D.?
It is becoming increasingly gruesome here as families show up and understand the full impact of the news. Several people have walked right by us as they cross the street coming into the international terminal here. They can't even speak when we ask them, is someone on this flight that you knew? Is there someone from your family? They're in total shock. They can't say anything. They rush to a door behind this bus and are told that they are at the right place. They are now being moved, however, to a hotel outside of JFK, just very nearby, and they're being moved on these buses, about a dozen at a time. About 10 minutes ago, a friend, a man who described himself as a friend of one of the people who was on board, spoke to us. His friend, whose name we are not identifying because he's not a family member, he is from the Coney Island section, or Sheepshead Bay section of Brooklyn, and he had this to say about what he has heard and what he knows.
I was driving in my car. It was about 10 o'clock, and I heard it on the radio from CBS.
And what was your reaction when you heard this?
My reaction, and the first they didn't say which flight number was, then they said which flight number was. I was shocked.
Now, he, as well as at least 40, 50, it's been tough to count, other people have been boarding these buses and going off to this off-airport location. Most of them, he's one of the rare ones, most of them unable to say anything, just the gravity of the situation sinking in. They've been arriving in dribs and drabs. A cab pulled up not long ago, and several women were inside. They stepped out of the cab, burst into tears, got back in the cab, and headed off to this location where grief counselors are standing by. These buses have been moving out. Right now there's 6 or 7, maybe 8 people on board this bus, and on this bus are, again, family members of the victims. There's Red Cross counselors with them as they travel to this other location. Still, though, this is where the families are arriving here at the International Terminal, TWA. Again, about 40 or 50 at this point, but it has been tough to count because it has become a steady stream of families.
Jay, do you know how TWA is trying to reach these families? Obviously, some are seeing this information on the news. Are they efforting other ways to reach the families?
I know in previous situations like this, and I can only speak from that kind of experience, that typically when you make an airline reservation, you do give a home number, and they can work off of that. They don't have significant other information other than passport information and all that, and they certainly haven't gotten to that yet. Most of the people, at least the few people that we have been able to talk to long enough to get anything from, have said that they heard about it on the radio or on TV.
How far away is this crisis counseling center from where you are, Jay?
It is a hotel, we are told, that is just off the airport, so these buses, it's a 5-minute ride to one of the hotels. They have more room. The reason is this terminal is an antiquated terminal and has a fairly small amount of space that would be appropriate for this kind of thing, partly because the spaces that they do have for this kind of thing have huge windows, and that is obviously what they're not looking to do.
I'm sure none of the grieving people care to talk to television reporters right now, but you're not anywhere in a position to talk to any of them, are you?
Well, they are actually passing by us. There's almost no way to get in here without passing through us, but there is now dozens of press people here and TV cameras, and the families are pushing through quickly. There's a reasonable amount of respect being shown considering how these situations can get. I know you've seen some of the ugly side of this, but there's a reasonable amount of respect being shown to families passing through.
Thank goodness, Jay. Yeah. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
What about the crew crew members who are coming through. You told us earlier about the reactions on their faces.
The last flights coming in have already come in, so the crew members, we haven't seen any since the last time I spoke to you, but again, they much like the families, as it sinks in, it's almost like they are less able to speak as the gravity of the situation sinks in. It's just that look on their face that they know, in their cases, it could have been them.
And the situation has become very gruesome and very clear that apparently there's no reason to hope for any survivors from the crash of TWA Flight 800, which went down in the Atlantic Ocean off Mauritius Inlet at about 8:30 this evening.
And our sympathies certainly go out to all the families who are receiving such sad news tonight. Let's give you the hotline number once again. Get out a pencil if you need it. The hotline number is 1-800-438-9892. Again, 1-800-438-9892. That's the passenger hotline number. Call it if you want to get some information.
And now we go back to NJ, who's at the Air National Guard on West Hampton Beach. NJ, what's happening now?
Bill, it's beginning to set in here, too. The Air National Guard is calling in its reserves. Dozens of men have been arriving here over the past several minutes. As we reported just a few minutes ago, they are setting up to mobilize this C-130 behind me, the C-130 that is just north of it, and there's a C-130 that is even further down the runway, down the tarmac beyond that one. They are all now, as you can see, there are ground crews setting them up. They are all set now to be airborne over the next several hours. The whole idea is to be able to get out there, to get on station, which is the military term, to do what has been described to me as a recovery effort.
And Jay, we're seeing a picture recorded earlier of some of the flames, and we're seeing other lights. I assume those are the flares that you're talking about that the C-130s are dropping?
That's right. The people here at the base have told me what they did initially, very early on in this rescue effort, was to toss flares out, to mark the scene, to set up what's called a staging area, to do what they can to rescue whatever survivors that they believed initially at the time that there were. What they've done is they've marked the scene, as you can see, fairly well. There are also a number of fishing boats out there. These are recreational boats as well as commercial boats, and there is an unwritten law of the sea that anybody who is in a position to get in a boat and get out there and help is going to do exactly that.
Is that helpful, NJ, or does that create a problem out there?
Excuse me, Diane, I'm sorry.
Is it helpful to have all those boats out there, or does it create a problem?
Well, as it's been described to me over the past several minutes, it was helpful early on. I'm not sure entirely at this point how helpful it is right now.
Do you imagine, are they trying to help, or are they rubbernecking, as we say?
I wouldn't think at this point, Bill, that they're rubbernecking. Yeah. It's probably a little early in the rescue recovery effort to see that.
Okay. NJ, thank you very much.
Let's, for a moment, recap what happened. We've got a TWA jetliner with 229 people on board. It exploded in a fireball moments after taking off from JFK Airport for Paris. You can see on the map here the site. It went down, we understand, about 5 miles out from Mauritius Inlet. Right now, no sign of survivors. This was a 747. It was TWA Flight 800. It was bound for Paris when it went down in the Atlantic Ocean. Witnesses have told us throughout the evening that they saw a giant fireball. Some people described the jet breaking in half. The latest word that we have gotten, and perhaps the most significant this evening, is that there was no distress signal from the jet, and certainly that is something that we were looking for early on, and we have been told as of about probably 45 minutes ago or a half hour ago that there was no distress call from Flight 800, and the FAA is certainly speculating that there is the possibility that there was perhaps an explosion on board. The other speculation, a mid-air collision, but we have heard no evidence of the latter this evening, so the speculation continues about a possible explosion on board. Obviously, there will be much investigation. The NTSB will be involved, the FAA will be involved, and family members are going to JFK Airport to the TWA terminal. We want to again give you the passenger hotline number. It is 1-800-438-9892. Grieving family members are being redirected to a hotel just off the airport facilities there, very close by, where they are dealing with Red Cross counselors. They are getting more information from TWA. And we try to bring you the best information as quickly and as accurately as we can.
And we are told, or the indications are, that so far there are no survivors to be reported from this crash. Just a few minutes ago, or rather I think we want to get to the, I was going to give the hotline number, but just a few minutes ago, the FAA, no, that's the Red Cross I'm talking about, excuse me, we've had a lot of papers in front of us. The Red Cross has been called in to help with any potential survivors from this disaster. We spoke just a short while ago with Diane Amorosa of the Red Cross. Oh, I beg your pardon. We're talking, she's live on the phone at the moment?
I believe Diane is with us. Diane?
Yes, hi,
Amorosa?
how are you?
How are you again? Nice talking to you.
Thank you, Bill. You too.
Tell us what the Red Cross is doing.
We have an emergency response vehicle en route to the Coast Guard site out in East Santa Mauritius, and we are ready to open up a mass care shelter at Santa Mauritius High School if need be. We have our volunteers all on alert, and our mental health people are available.
Diane, have you been given any indication that there will be a need for your services in terms of...
Actually, right now we're on hold.
You're just on hold.
Right.
What does that tell you?
Actually, either that they have everything already in hand and don't need our assistance, which I'm hoping that's what it is.
What else could it be telling you?
It could be telling us that the staging area may not be out in Suffolk County. It may be in New York City.
Well, is there also what your understanding would be that there are no survivors?
I have not heard of any yet, no.
Okay.
And in the meantime, you are there to help those people who are trying to find survivors and to carry on the rescue work that can be done.
Yes, we are.
Diane Amorosa, thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Bye-bye.
We wanted
Thanks,
a moment
Diane.
ago to give you the hotline number that people can call if they want information about the flight. That's 1-800-438-9892. 1-800-438-9892, the hotline for information about the crash of TWA Flight 800 that went down in the water off Long Island tonight, en route from JFK to Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris.
We have Jack Walsh, who is a retired 747 pilot, who is joining us this evening. Jack, what are your thoughts, having been with us for about the last half hour now?
Well, I'm quite surprised that they haven't done one thing out there. I'd be looking for some ships to be going out there with large floodlights on it, because we still have about another 6 hours of darkness, and a lot of things can happen out there in that time. And if there was any possibility, I think, of getting survivors now, or the next maybe hour or so, would be the important time on that.
We will ask about if any large ships are on their way. Now, Coast Guard cutters, there's 3 Coast Guard cutters are on their way. They're large enough for that.
Well, they should have some powerful floodlights, but I'm sure there are other transoceanic ships out there that could probably be called into, I don't know how deep the water is there, but I think it's deep enough to bring them in, and they could help in that sense of the word.
Well, it would be deep enough, 5 miles out. That would be deep enough.
That's a guess on my part. I don't know how the table runs under the
But I would also assume that the Coast Guard would have some of these large
The Coast Guard should have something like that
at their availability.
Yeah. I'm sure they're cranking them up out of Floyd Bennett right now, trying to get as many out as they can. But
we are told, incidentally, that Mayor Giuliani will be along in 10 or 15 minutes with a briefing on behalf of the city. The governor was with us just a few moments ago. When was that? It was about 10 minutes ago. Time goes fast. About 10 minutes ago, saying that the entire facilities of the state, rescue facilities of the state government, are available and will be used to try and rescue anybody that can be rescued. And we have to report once again that so far nobody indicates that there are going to be any survivors. And you're looking at a picture recorded earlier of the crash scene, and we presume that was a picture of the plane, the fuselage, the remains of the plane still burning, or alternatively some jet fuel floating on the water and burning that way.
Okay.
Jack, we talked to you before about how you felt looking at all this. You said you felt horror. I wonder if you'd go on a little farther.
Well, excuse me. You don't want. You never want to have an accident. One of the primary words I think in the vocabulary of a pilot is safety, and we always preach that. And in all of our training and everything we do, we try to stress the safety factors involved in this. And when something like this happens, you know, a lot of speculation, as we've been doing here tonight, of course, goes on, and we wonder just exactly what could have caused all this. As far as safety factors are concerned, I don't think that we can. They've become a factor. I think that the only reason we didn't hear from the crew on that airplane, as I mentioned, when they get transferred from one area to the next with the controllers, ATC controllers, there would be silence in there, and they might even been ordering coffee coming up or something like that at that point in time, which was perfectly fine. The fact that Jim is out in that airplane at 6,000 feet.
Jim Dolan, yeah.
Yeah, means that he was, shows you how much radar is around there, because he was in a radar area where he shouldn't be unless he's cleared in there by the controllers, and they're watching all that. So that would rule out the collision.
And Jack, I don't mean to interrupt. We do just have this little bit of new information that we've gotten, and our understanding is now that Flight 800 was going to the Charles de Gaulle Airport, but then that flight was to continue on to Rome with a different flight number. I've not been given that different flight number, but we are told that TWA Flight 800 was going to Paris, and then it was continuing on to Rome. And we are joined now by Kevin Carlson. He is with the U.S. Coast Guard. Kevin, we have this question for you that has been raised here, and that is, do you have a large ship or a large boat out in that area that is able to provide light for the rescue workers?
Okay. The answer to that is yes. The Coast Guard cutter Wabc is now on scene and is acting as the, I guess we would call the mothership in the area. There are a total of 6 other cutters on its way. The 270-foot Coast Guard cutter Harriet Lane is also on its way and is expected to arrive at 0800 tomorrow morning.
And how big is this ship?
Where do these Coast Guard cutters come from?
They are coming from all parts of the eastern shore.
And how big are they? How large?
Well, the largest would be the Harriet Lane 270-foot cutter.
And they come equipped with searchlights, or searchlights can be put on board?
The Wabc is equipped with that already.
And how much light can that provide on the scene?
I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't answer that.
What else can you tell us about what the Coast Guard is doing, Kevin?
Okay. The Coast Guard, as of now, like I said, is responding with 6 cutters. They got 6 helos on scene. 7 small boats are continually searching the area. We have outside resources: Suffolk Marine Police, Suffolk Air National Guard Base, State Police, Suffolk County Police, the Suffolk County Deputy Sheriffs, and other local agencies are also on scene responding to the emergency.
Kevin, thank you very much. We're going to Bob Hawk now, who's with the Federal Aviation Administration in Washington. Mr. Hawk, Bob?
Air Tower still have had any control over that plane?
Okay, we're not able to receive the audio from Bob Hawk. He is with the FAA in Washington. So, Jack, we'll continue on with you. What we're looking at, by the way, for our viewers is tape that was recorded earlier. Newscopter 7 has had to go refuel. It was up in the air for several hours this evening, and that was tape, again, that was recorded earlier this evening.
What you were suggesting moments ago, as you have suggested before, was that there was very little time, maybe no time whatsoever, on the part of the pilot and co-pilot and engineer on board that plane, which would indicate a very sudden kind of disaster, an explosion, maybe a bomb, maybe something else, maybe a mid-air collision that has been suggested, but the mid-air collision has been largely dismissed by people who understand what's going on.
Well, yeah. Well, had the crew been in touch with the center, had they been talking to them when the incident occurred in their airplane, it's more than likely the fellow would have said to the controller, he said, "Oh, stand by when we're having a problem up here," or something like that. He would have still had his hand on the button. Had they been just sitting there with the airplane climbing out, and generally speaking, it's on autopilot. Some of the guys like to fly them out, but like I did. But the thing is, they wouldn't be on the radios, and whatever did happen happened so quickly that an immediate response by the crew was required there to try to control what was going on. Now, I mentioned earlier, like a hard over, where if the controls had let go and create a hard over on the elevators and so forth and force the airplane to start descending at a rapid speed. But in a case like that, there would have been a chance for the pilots to say something.
Yeah, hard over means,
well,
means put.
Yeah, you're climbing out normally, and all of a sudden, if you did have a hard over, a sudden pushover on the control column, which would push the nose down and bring the airplane down quickly.
Thank you, Jack. Want to just mention what's coming up. We are expecting Mayor Giuliani. He's going to be out at JFK. He's going to give us a press briefing. We will have that. We're also expecting more information from TWA, and possibly the FAA out at the airport as well. And we want to go now to Tom Erickson, another eyewitness who saw what happened earlier this evening, about 8:20, 8:30 this evening. Am I right, Tom?
Yes.
Tom, tell us what you saw.
I was having a picnic down. We were sitting about a mile west of the Mauritius Inlet at Smiths Point Beach, and we were having, like I said, we were having a picnic. We were looking out over the water, and saw the flash in the sky. At first, seemed to flash upward, and then it fell straight down like a long tube of fire from the original flash height up in the sky all the way to the water, and it lasted, say, 10 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds, and then it was gone. It was probably beyond the horizon where if there were flames on the water, we wouldn't see it, but it was a tremendous flash. It looked like a gasoline explosion, one of those kind of violent flashes that you would see.
Where were you specifically, Tom, when this happened?
We were a couple hundred feet from the shoreline at Smiths Point Beach, which is about a mile, 2 miles west of Mauritius Inlet.
What did you think when you saw that, Tom?
At first, we weren't sure. We speculated it was a plane. We didn't know what kind of explosion. It was like nothing I saw before. It was so huge that it was hard to actually tell what it was. And then we all said, we think a plane exploded. So I walked over to the beach pavilion, and there was an official there, and I told him, I said, I think we saw an explosion, and he had like a walkie-talkie, and he walked away or ran away and made some announcement. I just walked back, but it was a long tube. It fell straight down. It didn't come on angles. There wasn't two pieces. Although there was like a double flash, it still didn't look like two individual objects. It just fell completely straight down into the water. It was a vertical tube.
So what you're saying is, because some people have said that they basically saw the plane split in two, but you're saying that's not what you saw.
No, I saw a secondary flash, but it was just a long tube of flames. I mean, from the height, whatever height it was up in the sky, straight to the water. It was completely on fire, the whole tube.
We're joined tonight by Jack Walsh, who is a retired 747 pilot. Jack, this is probably about the 10th description we've heard tonight. Can you tie them all in together? Is there a common thread here that you're hearing in all of these?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, that the optical illusion looking out over the water gives the sense to the person watching it that the explosion where the fire took place in the air, in reality it happened as it was impacting. Now, he says, one person did say there were two pieces of it. And he said it was just the one long tube.
Yeah.
Now, if he was able to see the fuselage that well, he saw it quite clearly. And it means it wasn't dark. And therefore, when I say the illusion, it would be more prominent at night if it was dark when they saw it. In the daytime, it could go either way. And he said it took approximately 10 seconds. Well, I'm willing to bet that was probably maybe 1 second, 1 or 2 seconds.
Time does seem to be distorted
so
when we're recalling
he saw the impact again.
Right.
But again, what brought that airplane down, it had to be tremendous.
Well, we have to point out that though we've been on the air with this for about 3 hours now, it is a fact that we know very little so far about what caused this crash. There's a good deal of speculation. We know that 212 passengers were on board and 17 crew for a total of 229 people on board TWA Flight 800, and that it exploded or was hit by something in midair, about 5 miles off Mauritius Inlet, off the shore of Long Island. But we have yet to find out any solid and reliable information as to what caused the plane.
Perhaps
It might be quite a while before we do that. We're going to go to Andrew.
No, actually, Bill, we're going to go to Bob Hawk. He is with the FAA, and he's in Washington. Bob, are you there? We tried you before. Are you there for us, Bob?
I don't have it yet, but I...
Bob?
No, there's a little crosstalk on there.
We're still struggling to get Bob this evening.
Let's try Andrew Anderson with the Port Authority, if he's still with us.
Andrew?
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, this is Officer Anderson.
Yes, hello again. Has anything changed from the Port Authority's point of view since we talked to you, I think, about an hour and a half ago?
Not really, sir. We have still no reports of anyone surviving.
Andrew, when we talked to you before, I think some of our questions were focusing on any word from the air traffic control tower, and our understanding now is that there was no distress signal. Can you confirm that for us?
I can't confirm that. However, we received no information indicating that there was a distress call.
Okay.
What information does the Port Authority have that might help to shed some light on this incident?
Well, at this point in time, sir, it's still under investigation as to what caused this particular accident, sir.
Who has primary responsibility for investigation now, sir?
It would be the National Transportation Safety Board, and if anything is reported in any other area, such as sabotage or anything like that, the FBI would take over.
Andrew, has the NTSB sent its people, and have they arrived yet? Usually they're pretty quick to get on the scene.
I'm not aware that the NTSB is yet on the scene.
And the FBI, any indication the FBI is there?
FBI, I believe, is on the scene, sir.
Andrew, tell us a little bit about this high alert at the airport. What does that mean for passengers?
Well, it's an enhanced alert that we've been on for quite some time, ma'am. But I can't go into the details of our security.
No, but I'm talking about what it means for passengers, because as I recall, high alert means that you can't check any baggage out front.
Well,
am I correct?
Again, ma'am, I can't comment on the security.
Okay, so you can't tell us what it would mean for a passenger going to the airport?
No, ma'am.
What is the next step for the Port Authority, Mr. Anderson? I know you've been busy all evening ever since this happened, but so that we understand what kind of investigatory activity is going on, what kind of activity on any level is going on, what is the next responsibility of the Port Authority?
Right now, we're caring for the families of the passengers on board that aircraft, and we're trying to gain information as to that can assist any other agency in solving the mystery of why this aircraft went down.
So you always have a strong presence at JFK, that being the airport from which the plane left, and you of course run the airports, the Port Authority. So your job is to help the families, the people who've come. People related to the people who are on board the plane?
That's correct, sir.
Well, Andrew, what exactly are you doing in terms of helping the families?
Right now, we're assisting them with clergy. We're assisting them in gaining information as to what occurred.
How many families do you have there so far?
I'm not sure of the exact number. The last number I received was approximately 40.
And my understanding is they're being taken to an off-site location?
I believe so now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And will they be able to stay there for how long? How long will you expect them to be?
That I'm not aware of, ma'am, but I'm sure they'll be able to stay there as long as necessary.
Okay. Thank you so much,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jack Walsh, you used to fly 747s. A question, not meant to be an indelicate question, but have you ever had a crash?
Oh, God, no.
No?
No, I've been very fortunate in all my years of flying that...
Which are how many?
Going back to 1942. I went into the war.
Mm-hmm. So you learned to fly and flew in the
I left high
Air
school
Corps.
right into the Naval Aviation Cadet Program, and I've been flying ever since.
Jack, it's my understanding that there were 3 people in the cockpit. That would be standard for this flight, and who would those people be?
On that airplane, yes, we have the 3-person cockpit. We have the captain, first officer, and the flight engineer. On the newer ones, we only have 2 up there, I understand, on 400.
Now this and we had mentioned this before, this was a 747-100, which was manufactured around the mid-70s. My understanding is that flight recorders have changed dramatically between when the planes were manufactured in the 70s. The newer ones now can give so much more detailed information, and that they've not completely updated flight recorders on the older jets. Am I correct in that?
Well, yeah, I don't know how updated they become on the 100 models or any of the airplanes that are more than 10 or 15 years of age. But the recording unit, it's right over my head, and if I whisper, this will pick it up. It picks up all of our conversation.
Okay,
within
excuse
the
me,
last
Jack, we
Jack.
got to interrupt.
Hate to
Mayor
interrupt.
Giuliani is at City Hall with a briefing. I believe it's at City
Actually,
Hall,
I
maybe
believe
at the airport.
he's at JFK.
It's at JFK.
There's
There's
the
Mayor
mayor.
Giuliani. And standing next to him is Police Commissioner Safer.
Good morning. I know that all New Yorkers join me in praying for the victims and the families and friends of the passenger and crew of TWA Flight 800. In fact, if we could just take a moment of silence and offer a small prayer for all of them, for the difficulties they're going to have to go through. New York City is doing everything that we can to assist the families, to assist the rescue, to assist the Port Authority and TWA. And I can describe briefly for you the assistance that we're giving. We're offering help in 2 locations. One is out in Santa Maria at the site of the crash, and the other is here at Kennedy. Out there, Jerry Hauer, who is in charge of the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management, went out much earlier with ESU on a helicopter. He's out there now at the site. There are 3 helicopters with 20 divers, 30 support people from the NYPD. 3 harbor launches are on their way to the site. 2 should arrive very shortly if they haven't already, and 1 probably a little later. 2 Zodiacs and a 102-foot vessel, which is a floating command post, is on its way to the scene, and it'll be there in about another hour and a half. We were asked for assistance by the Air National Guard, and we're giving all of the assistance that they need, and we'll continue to do that at the scene. It consists, again, as I said, of ESU officers, divers, 4 members of the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management, including the director, and we're ready to lend any other additional assistance that's needed as the Coast Guard becomes more involved in the rescue effort, or the effort that's going on to try to find survivors if there are any. We're also here, we have members of the police department, the fire department, EMS, CAU, units here to try to help the families that are here, try to offer them any assistance that we can. We've asked 9X to send cell telephones, which they're doing. We have some of the chaplains from the police department and the fire department, and from the community assistance unit, both the mayors and the police departments, which unfortunately have experience in dealing with tragedies like this. So we will try to do everything that we can to help the families deal with what's going to be a very, very difficult night and a very difficult morning. I spoke a few minutes ago to Jerry Hauer, who is out at the scene in Santa Maria, and they're massing for a major effort. Some is ongoing now. More will take place when there's daylight to try to find whatever can be found. Any questions? No, we'll do that right afterwards, as soon as they're settled and in a location and ready to talk to us.
Mr. Mayor, have you been able to determine if there were any threats or any suspicious circumstances surrounding?
We're not going to comment on anything that has to do with the investigation in any way.
Are you getting any kind of sense of what might have gone wrong?
I'm not going to speculate, not going to comment on what happened. It's much too early. Obviously, there'll be a very, very detailed investigation, and a sensitive one, and there's no useful information that I can give right now. I don't believe that. No, I don't believe that's the case. Oh, I think it's much too early to talk about that.
About any of the accounts that the search and rescue teams are providing back to the authorities here?
Just that it's becoming a more and more difficult situation, meaning I think the reality of what occurred is settling in for the people that are out there. And they are carrying bodies back to shore.
Mayor, are you going to the site?
I don't believe so, no. I think we can help here by talking to the families and offering them assistance in the same way that we would if the tragedy occurred in New York City. The police department, the fire department, CAU, EMS have a good deal of experience, unfortunately, in dealing with tragedies, and they can offer a lot of assistance to the families.
Mr. Mayor, I understand the FBI is monitoring the situation as we speak. Has the Joint Terrorist Task Force been called in to at least look into this?
Well, they'll certainly be involved in the investigation, but the FBI and the police department really should speak to that.
I've been in touch with Assistant Director Kallstrom. We are exchanging information, and we'll work very closely together, as will the Joint Terrorist Task Force.
Commissioner Safo, while you're there, sir, just to re-ask the question, are there any suspicious circumstances surrounding the departure of this flight? Have there been any threats made against Kennedy Airport or any air travel in this area?
At this point, it's too early to speculate on what the cause was, and until we have some more results of this investigation, we're not going to speculate at all.
I want to also offer my condolences and sympathy and support to George Marlin and to the Port Authority. This is a very difficult night for them. It's going to be a very difficult night and morning. I spoke to George earlier when he called me from here. I offered any assistance that we could give, and he graciously accepted that offer. And I want to congratulate the Port Authority on doing a very good job of coordinating what's going on with each of these families. This is a very difficult thing to live through, and the sensitivity with which it is done can, to some extent, help these families. Thanks, George. George?
As the mayor mentioned, we're working in cooperation with the city and TWA to provide whatever services we can and support here at the Port Authority. We're providing transportation for the families, we're providing chaplains, we're providing medical help, and we're coordinating this with our security forces as well with the City of New York. So I, too, want to thank the mayor. I spoke to the governor earlier before. The governor, I believe, made a statement, but the governor, too, has offered help, particularly on eastern Long Island, and has offered any help we have here. So I want to thank the governor and the mayor for their tremendous cooperation, and we are doing everything we can to support TWA, but more important, to support those families at this moment in time. Thank you.
Do you know whether the majority of the passengers are from the tri-state metropolitan?
We don't have that information yet. We've quickly looked at the names, but we don't have the information yet as to where the people reside. That probably won't be available until tomorrow.
It's still very early, but can you try and assess the mood out there at the rescue site, the hope, if there is any at this point, that someone may have survived or still be alive?
I can't. I really shouldn't give you that information. The people out there have a better sense of that. I can just tell you that the mood at the rescue site is very serious and very somber. And they've recovered bodies, and they're bringing the bodies back to shore. And obviously, there's also an equal amount of concern here for the families who are going to have to live through a very difficult evening and morning and day tomorrow.
Mr. Mayor, or Marlin, do you have an idea of how many families are here?
We don't have the number. We know families have been arriving. The numbers are growing, but we don't have an exact number.
And are other flights being affected at all?
No, the other flights at JFK have not been affected, and we don't expect it to be affected at all tomorrow morning. The airport will be running as usual.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that was Mayor
Giuliani.
Giuliani, and we want to go now to N.J. Burkett, who's at West Hampton Beach. We understand he is joined by some people who have just gotten back from the crash sites. N.J.?
That's right, Diana. In fact, the first C-130 aircraft that actually arrived at the rescue site has just now landed in West Hampton Beach. I'm joined now actually by the entire flight crew headed up by Mike Weiss. Now, I'm told, Mike, actually, that you guys were out on a training mission at the time the plane went down. Describe to me, Mike, what you saw.
Well, we're out there around 8:40 tonight, doing a typical training mission off the coast of West Hampton, about 10-15 miles. And the crew was startled by a big flash of light in the sky. And we turned our attention and the aircraft over in that direction. Next thing we know, we see huge amounts of smoke off the ocean floor. And we proceeded over there within a couple of minutes, right with our Jolly helicopter, who was also airborne with us. And we proceeded in looking for survivors. And as we were making a search of the area, we could tell that it was probably some sort of passenger jetliner, based on all the debris that we saw.
I was going to say, based on what? You say the debris and the amount of fire?
Yeah, huge amount of oil slick fire, debris. You could see some inflated life rafts and the evacuation slides that are typical of a jet airliner.
Okay, so you saw life rafts and evacuation slides. Is there anything that we ought to read into that, Mike?
It's too early to really speculate what could that have been about.
Well, would that indicate to you guys that these people might have seen something coming and in fact inflated life rafts and inflated...
You guys go off and launch right now. 974, you got crew nest, get on.
All right, we're actually, you can see what's going on live television right now. They're going to move these guys, get them back out. And Diana, Bill, you can see what's going on right now. They are going to get back into the aircraft, get back out there on scene, and I'm told that there's more of a recovery effort that they've got to undertake out here.
Thank you, NJ. Fascinating.
And they do have a lot more to do, and they're probably going out to continue, or they're certainly going out to continue to try to find some bodies or some indication of survivors. And we are not having any information, are we, NJ, that there are survivors that have to be brought back yet?
No, in fact, that's true, Bill. At this point, we've got no indication of any survivors whatsoever. I have, over the past couple hours, been monitoring the Coast Guard emergency frequency, and it is quite eerily quiet. If there had been a lot of activity, we'd be hearing it, and we're just not hearing that, Bill.
NJ, stay right there for us, because Jack Walsh is with us. He's a retired 747 pilot. Jack, NJ
Jack.
raised the point about the, or our witness saw the inflated rafts and the chutes. Would that just be something that could have happened as a result of the explosion?
Yeah, it could have.
It could have.
The chutes are part of the door, and at that point in time, they would have been rigged to go out and inflate when the door opened.
So it could have been a result of an
something had
intense
to force
explosion.
the door out of it. Yes.
It could have forced them out.
You mean the chute would be ready to be deployed under all any circumstances?
Oh yeah, that is armed before takeoff, and it stays that way.
And then it is unarmed for normal landing.
No, for landing it's also armed. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to NJ. NJ, you're still with us, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, tell us. We're seeing the guys loading up right now. Tell us a little bit more about what they're going to be doing once they get out to the site.
Well, what they're doing, Diana, is they're boarding the C-130 aircraft that is specially equipped with night vision lenses, with infrared sensors, and they're going to do everything they can to get out there and recover what it is they can recover. We, unfortunately, did not have as much of an opportunity to talk to them as we had hoped, but you can see the urgency of what's going on out here. These guys were out here, they talked to me for a couple minutes, and they were immediately sent back out onto the C-130. That says to me that they've got a limited number of people that they've got to work with, and they've got to get them back out there.
And you mentioned also that these C-130s are dropping flares, which I know are extremely crucial given the dark night we have tonight.
Well, absolutely. As we reported earlier, there is a new moon, which in essence means that you don't see anything in the night sky. I said before that the brightest thing in the sky is the planet Jupiter. And unfortunately, it makes for a very, very difficult rescue undertaking.
NJ, did I detect an urgency on the part of the officer who came to gather the members of the crew that he perhaps did not want them talking to you right now?
Difficult to say, Bill. I might have suspected that if they had gone into the building here at the 106 to be debriefed. But in fact, what he did was he turned them right around and put them on an airplane.
Well, NJ, I mean, you raise a good point there. I would imagine the NTSB and the FAA will want to talk to these folks who witnessed the first signs of the site.
Well, Diana, I can say...
They were the first there, right?
Yeah, exactly. They were up in the sky. They were doing a routine training mission, and what they saw was a fireball in the night sky, and they moved immediately to investigate it. They were in a position to move instantaneously, and they did that. And what they saw was a fireball. They saw a lot of flame on the water. They saw a slick of fuel burning, and what has not been reported until now is that they saw inflated chutes, inflated life rafts. I'm not really sure, as Jack said, what we can read into that.
Perhaps not very much. It would not indicate that they had, I don't think, Jack, it would indicate that they had time to deploy these rafts. No, they did it automatically.
When the fuselage opened up on the impact, they could have been shot
pretty
right
much like an airbag in an automobile.
Yeah. Right.
And NJ, the people you talked to, the crew there, have the best eyewitness account that we've gotten so far, because they were up in the sky and they got a good view, a superior view of what happened when the explosion hit Flight 800.
Yeah, that's right. They were doing a routine training mission. The horizon, as you would imagine, fairly dark because there is no moon in the sky.
Now, do I
visible.
understand also, NJ, that some of those C-130s are back out there now, and we're just waiting for this one to take off, but there are some out there at work now?
We are attempting to confirm how many precisely they have on scene, as they refer to it. In fact, I'm just hearing something on the loudspeaker here at the base. They are saying right now that they've got at least one, possibly two, out there at the moment. This, to my count, would be the third one, Bill.
And is their job still to provide light with flares?
The flares are out there. Flares obviously do burn out after some period of time. I think what they're going to do is toss more down there, and what they do is if you can look very carefully, it's a little difficult to see, but if you can see in the cabin, just straight ahead at the nose of the aircraft, there's a series of windows. The crewmen will sit in those windows. They'll also sit in windows that are underneath the wing. And what they do is they specifically look through those windows with night vision goggles to look for bodies.
And NJ, I know the gravity of this situation is really sinking in for all of this. We saw a very emotional Mayor Giuliani speaking a moment ago out at JFK Airport. He offered a moment of silence. Is the gravity of the situation, I imagine it's certainly being felt where you are as well.
These guys who go out and do this for a living, to some extent are like police officers. To some extent they're like firefighters. They focus on the job at hand. They do what it is they've got to do. And in fact, actually, I want to look off to the side here, and if we can focus off to the side, you're going to see there's a Coast Guard plane that's about to take off to the side. Tony, if you can get a look over here, there's a Coast Guard plane that looks like it's about to take off.
NJ, I think they want you to get off the tarmac there.
We're going to back off the tarmac now, Diana. You know why that is. Obviously,
you're in the way of that C-130 taking off.
Yeah, that's right. We've got to get out of the way.
NJ, thank you so much.
We'll be back to you later, NJ. We're going now to Bob Gaffney, who's the Suffolk County Executive. I presume he's in Riverhead or Hauppauge. Bob, hello?
Yeah, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Bob. We're at the Riches. We just came from the first general briefing from all of the various agencies involved in what's still considered a search and rescue operation. We're now down by the Riches Firehouse, but there were representatives from the FBI, from National Traffic Safety Bureau, Suffolk County Police, Suffolk County Medical Examiner's Office. Yes?
We understand you have some new information. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the FBI has arrived. There was Agent Greco from the local FBI office. The FBI has taken over the investigative part, and they're working in conjunction with Suffolk County's homicide squad.
Bob,
is that not significant?
Seems pretty significant. What is that telling you?
It doesn't tell me anything specifically, other than the fact that there's reason to believe that this could have been the result of foul play. They've indicated that a special task force of people who investigate these kinds of things will be on its way out from the main office in the city.
Commissioner Safer, during Mayor Giuliani's appearance, pointed out that the Joint Terrorist Task Force is in operation and has already joined the investigation.
That's the group I was talking about. They're on their way if they haven't already gotten here. When we had the last briefing, they had not yet arrived. It's interesting. The way this breaks down is the Coast Guard is the incident commander. Commander Peterson of the Coast Guard is the incident commander. The criminal handles the civil stuff. The criminal stuff, or potential criminals, is being handled by the FBI in conjunction with the with Suffolk County Homicide Squad.
Well, Bob, I have to tell you, I mean, typically on these things, it's just the NTSB and it's the FAA, and to hear that the FBI is actively involved in this does make it seem that this was a suspicious downing of this jet. Is that what it's saying to you?
Well, nobody wants to make any declarations that there was any foul play involved, because nobody really knows at this point. But I think the circumstances, not a mid-air collision, but the circumstances seem to indicate that there's a strong likelihood that might be the case. So they're there to investigate, because some of the evidence they'll need to determine foul play will be coming in with the bodies as they come in from the crash scene.
Bob, what is Suffolk County called upon to do now? What are you trying to do?
Well, what we're trying to do at this point is using our aviation and marine bureau, helicopters and boats to transport bodies and to assist in the search efforts. Thereafter, we're securing the scene with our police department and our emergency medical services. Then through the night, the biggest part will probably be done by the Suffolk County Department, by the medical examiner's office, who will be moving as the bodies are transported from the Coast Guard station to Suffolk County's coroner's office, where investigation will be continued and autopsies will be done, and efforts will be made to see, one, if all of the remains can be identified, and if at the same time to see if there's any way that they can identify what the cause of the crash was.
I would assume, however, Bob, that Suffolk County would need a little help from other counties and other entities, because you can't possibly be ready for this kind of a disaster on an ongoing basis.
I asked the medical examiner that, and they said that if the bodies come in spread out over a period of time, which is more likely than not, then there's sufficient resources within the medical examiner's office. There's a large staff of pathologists that. Suffolk's a big, it's 1.4 million people. It's the biggest county in the state outside of New York City, so it has resources. We have resources to do that. If all 200 and some odd bodies, God forbid there's no survivors, if they all were brought to the medical examiner's office at one time, they wouldn't be able to do it. But if necessary, they can call upon other agencies, the state and Stony Brook University, and
Thank you, Bob, very much.
Thank
we'll
you
get back
so
to
much,
later.
our Suffolk County Executive. We want to go now to Eddie Aruza, who is standing by live for us at JFK Airport. Eddie, anything new to tell us?
Well, Diana, it was a somber Mayor Giuliani who just addressed us a few minutes ago and gave us an update as far as what the city's participation is in this tragedy. And he said that the city's participation is both technical and emotional and spiritual. Technical in the sense that they are providing as much equipment as is necessary in order to help with the operations out in Mauritius. He said that they are sending helicopters, 3 helicopters, 20 divers, and several vessels from the police department's harbor unit. Now, as far as the spiritual and emotional assistance, that's taking place here at JFK Airport, where chaplains from both the fire and police department have arrived to try to console and try to counsel family members and friends of those who were on board. Now, this is what the mayor had to say earlier as far as technical assistance.
We have members of the police department, the fire department, EMS, CAU, units here to try to help the families that are here, try to offer them any assistance that we can. We've asked 9X to send cell telephones, which they're doing. We have some of the chaplains from the police department and the fire department, and from the community assistance unit, both the mayors and the police departments, which unfortunately have experience in dealing with tragedies like this. I can just tell you that the mood at the rescue site is very serious and very somber, and they've recovered bodies, and they're bringing the bodies back to shore. And obviously, there's also an equal amount of concern here for the families who are going to have to live through a very difficult evening and morning and day tomorrow.
Now, a number of those families have been arriving here at JFK. They have set up operations over in the terminal where they're being counseled and helped and given the latest information that TWA officials can give them. Now, the mayor was asked whether the airport was under any heightened security measures. He said no, even in lieu of the upcoming Olympics. He did not want to speculate, he said, on what may or may not have been the cause, what may or may not have happened. He was also asked whether the majority, where the majority of the passengers on board came from, whether they were from our area or whether they originated somewhere else. He said that he looked at a passenger list, but that he could not tell from that exactly where most of the passengers had originated. Now, we are told that the operations here at JFK have not been affected, that flights should be arriving and taking off as scheduled tomorrow morning. That may or may not change. The best thing to do is, if you have a flight coming in or expecting a flight coming in or a flight leaving out of JFK tomorrow, to call your carrier to find out the latest. But right now they're telling us that flight operations have not been affected. Bill, Diana?
Eddie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie.
Mayor Giuliani said that they're bringing bodies back to shore. That is the underlying reality. And some of the people who are having to face that underlying reality are at JFK Airport now at the TWA terminal, and we go there. Jay DeDapper.
Bill, this is one of the families just arriving now. You can see some of the lights put on them by TV cameras. They've been walking through little by little. It's actually slowed down quite a bit since the last time we talked to you. Just a handful of families have arrived here, and then they are taken on these buses to a hotel here at the airport where the whole crisis center is set up. We told you when we first got here that the first people that we saw, the first people arriving at this International Arrivals building, or the TWA International building, excuse me, were clergy, priests and a rabbi, and we had a chance to talk to one of the priests who had been here and who had talked to a number of the families of the victims. This is some of what he had to say, including the fact that there wasn't much you could say to this.
How are they holding up? What are they doing to deal with the situation?
They seem to be they only bring them over pretty well. They determined that they're hopeful, you know.
And the father went on to say that most of the families that he had talked to as they had come in had heard about it, not from TWA or anything like that, but heard about it on the television or the radio. He said there was very little that he was able to say to these families other than to try and comfort them. They then, of course, got on these buses and have headed to the crisis center. The Red Cross has been on the scene the whole time, as well as the Salvation Army. And TWA, of course, has its own crisis people in place. Again, families do continue to arrive here, even at this late hour, 1:15 in the morning. They continue to arrive, and there are people inside that have been trying to take care of them. There has also been some confusion. People arriving here whose families and loved ones had been on earlier flights or on later flights, and there's obviously a sense of relief when they find out that their family members were not involved in this flight. But again, most of the families walking through here, most of the family members walking through that have family that was on this flight, there is nothing that they can say. They are so stunned that as they walk through, the reporters asking questions, there's absolutely nothing they can say.
Jay, do we know whether or not, and you may not know, were these mostly business travelers or tourists? This time of year, I'm venturing that it was a lot of tourists heading to Paris.
Well, those that we have seen coming through, and again, this is based on the family members and the little that we've been able to glean from it, they all seem to be tourist travel, students and tourists and that kind of thing. It is difficult to tell, obviously, just from that, and we've only seen maybe 30 to 40 family members at this point, and if the passenger manifest is above 200, then clearly there are a lot of family members. And keep in mind, this plane was going to Paris, and many people may have in fact been from France or from other places in continental Europe.
Okay. JD, thank you very much. We're going now to the congressman for the area involved. This is the 1st Congressional District.
Okay, actually, we're going to interrupt because we do want to go back to JFK. TWA is holding a news conference right now. Let's take a look.
Could you wait a second? Hang on, just one moment. Give us a minute. Wireless. Yeah, hi. The guys are in. The guys are talking to you. Listen to me.
Airport operations. JFK. Right.
Kenny. Kenny.
Why?
Is everybody ready?
This is Mike Kelly, who's the Vice President of TWA. He had told us earlier that he would come on and speak to us a little bit after 1 o'clock. He's here.
Okay,
and now let's listen to what
I
he
promised
has
you
to
I'd
say.
be back at 1 o'clock. I'm a little late, I'm sorry. We are trying to respond to this terrible tragedy as best we can. I would like to indicate right up front that I want to thank the Port Authority of New York for their outstanding response and assistance in this terrible situation. I don't think I have a whole lot of new information for you, unfortunately. I think that most of you understand how these things go at this particular point. It's late at night. There are rescue crews on the scene. We are trying to get information as much as we can to get TWA people to the right places. We have crews coming in from Kansas City, from St. Louis, and other locations to be on site, and most of the response team will be here first thing in the morning, probably by 8:30 at the latest. Our primary concern, of course, is the families and friends and acquaintances who are inquiring about this. We are attempting to respond to that. We have a number of very dedicated TWA employees assisted by the Port Authority specialists in trying to handle that situation. The problem we have right now at this particular point in time is they're seeking a lot of information that, quite frankly, no one has, and certainly we don't have either. We'll endeavor to find that and to provide that to them and to you as soon as we have it. And I think that's about all I can tell you right now. I'm sure you'll have a few questions. I'll take a few, and then I have to go.
Can you please give us the clearest picture, minute by minute, of the preparations for the flight, what time it left, what time it pushed back from the gate, and any communications that you had with TWA Flight 800?
I don't know that I can give you a highly accurate detail. You'd have to talk to the supervisor who handled that particular flight. I did talk to him. We've inspected our ordinary boarding documents. It appears to us right now to have been a perfectly ordinary international departure for TWA from JFK. Really no anomalies.
Can you describe the security and screening precautions that TWA has here? The equipment that they have, is it the modern, is it state-of-the-art, anything new that might have been added? And we're also hearing reports that there might have been some increased security surrounding the Olympics.
Well, the FAA mandates the security levels, and TWA, like other carriers, responds to that security level, whatever it is. I don't particularly want to go into the details right now because that's part of the security program. We follow the security program, and again, I'm not aware of any anomalies in our handling of the security procedures. We check that routinely. It appears to be normal. Let me take a question from somebody else.
Could you tell us what time the plane actually took off? You said it was scheduled for 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You said they lost contact at 8:40.
I think it actually departed around 8 o'clock.
That's 45 minutes. That's going to take 45 minutes to fly 30 miles. How long, what time did it actually take off?
That's the information I have, sir.
Mr. Kelly, the
yes.
relatives, how many relatives are here now? Most from the New York metropolitan area?
With regard to family and friends, I do not have a count at this particular point in time. I also do not know how many passengers or people were from the New York area. No, I really don't. I'm sorry. Pardon? I couldn't say positively. I am advised that there were, but I couldn't say positively.
Mr. Kelly, for your response team that you said coming in from St. Louis and so on, what are they supposed to do?
The response team is a wide range of airline professionals that have to do with aircraft maintenance, pilots, ground people, other people dealing with responses to the various things. We check cargo, we check baggage, we check passenger manifests, a really rather long laundry list, and we have people who are specialists in doing that.
Is this a common thing if something like this happens? Are these TWA people alone?
Well, it's certainly not a common thing. What we do as a standard part of our preparedness is that we have a trauma response program, and we identify individuals and put them through training, hopefully in the event that we will never need it. But unfortunately, in this particular case, it looks like we do. So we have people assigned to various tasks. They are called on and put into motion to come in and begin to take care of this thing. It's a very wide-ranging program.
The mayor was telling us that bodies have been brought to shore. Do you know how many have been identified at the site?
No, I don't have any information from the...
Mr. Kelly, contact with the plane at 8:40, but it took off at 8 o'clock, so you can assume that the plane was in the air for 40 minutes before it went down. Is that what you're saying?
That's the information that I have. I haven't actually checked the logs on it. I'm sorry. We've been doing with some other things, but I'm advised by the supervisor that it was off at 8. There was some taxi time, and then the actual time that actually departed Kennedy would be a different time than the time it was off the gate. So we'll provide that information later on when we have it nailed down. I just don't want to get into it now because I can't give you facts.
If you don't have a lot of information for the families, what are you able to do for them right now?
Well, really not much. We're trying to comfort them best we can and to give them contacts and people that they can talk to. We've had a large number of our employees here and other people volunteer to turn out to be with them, but quite frankly, we don't know what the story is. Their primary concern is, are there any survivors? We simply don't know.
Are they shocked? Can you
tell us anything about the crew, the captain, how long he's been flying, what kind of experience?
I don't have that information. I'm sorry.
About the area, there were 212 kosher dinners orders in that flight.
No, I don't have that information. I'm sorry. That'll be handled by corporate, and that'll probably be tomorrow or the next day as soon as they can verify that.
Will it be here or in St. Louis?
It'll probably be released out of St. Louis, although there will be people here in New York, so we'll probably have it in both places.
Kelly, how old was the aircraft?
I don't know. That was asked earlier. I'm sorry. I just haven't had time to get that information.
Other TWA employees, are there any counseling or anything going on for them?
Yes, we are attending to that. We're very concerned about that also.
What about any special groups, any like high school bands, high school band from small town?
I don't have any information about special groups or anything like that at this particular time. No, I don't have that, yes.
What can you tell us about the plane itself? It's an early series, 1970s, is all that kind of...
Again, that's technical information I really don't have readily available, and I'm not going to speculate on it.
Do you know when from JFK, or did it come in from someplace else and then go on this other thing?
Oh, that was asked earlier. It came in from Athens. It was on the ground here for about 3 hours and then went out to Charles de Gaulle.
Sorry, if my memory is correct, the airport in Athens, Greece, is the subject of some controversy in the aviation community and warnings about security. When you have an aircraft come here from Athens, what is the procedure for checking it, making sure that it is cleared out? Is there any possibility that something could be smuggled here from Athens? And is that a point of concern at this point?
Well, I think every possibility will be examined. We fly into and out of Athens every day, and we have a standard procedure, not only for Athens, but for all destinations to ensure that the plane is as secure as we can make it. Beyond that, I'm not going to go into details about how we handle that.
For those concerned, those phone numbers again, are there any new numbers, or what is the number that we should be putting up?
Yeah, the best number for the press to contact is 314-589-3214, and that's just press. That is our corporate communications department. We've given them a separate number, and I'd rather not give it out here. The number I gave earlier was not the right number, and it's caused a few problems at our command center. 314-589-3214.
Because of the Olympics?
We have responded to the FAA directive with regard to the increased security levels, as have all carriers.
Which is what?
Well, I'm not going to go into the details of the security levels right now. Yes, sir.
What's the flight scheduled to arrive in Paris?
Sorry, I don't think I have that. Maybe I can.
While you're looking for that, do you say that family members can call that we should give them, since there are a lot of people watching the news right
We
now?
have put a wrong number out before because you guess it was
Yes.
you did the right number?
Well, is there a number that we can give to the...
We'd like to correct that.
Let's see. As far as the number is concerned, what we're disseminating that through our own internal office, and I'd rather not give it out here. The problem is we got, when we gave it out before, is that we had an enormous response with people calling who really were not the people who were targeted. We are in contact with the families and giving them that number. So.
What was the destination of the plane?
Pardon?
After Paris.
I don't have that. I'm sorry.
Mike, was there any unusual communication between the pilot and the tower? Any suggestion something could have been wrong?
I don't have any information that there was.
I heard a report on the way over that said TWA has the oldest fleet in the nation. Is that true?
I don't believe that's true, no.
Who does? You say that you're assisting the families. Could you go into a little more detail with that, and how many people at least have arrived, as far as you can tell? And if you're talking about assistance, I mean, is there a place for them to stay?
Yeah, we provide hotel rooms. We have the trauma response people there to try and provide some counseling. We're taking down their names and phone numbers so that we can get back in touch with them as we begin to get more detailed information. Some of the people we're advising they probably would be better off just going back home until we get some information and can tell them. Other people want to stay here. We've made arrangements for them. We're providing them with food, beverage, hotel rooms if they want it, phones so they can make phone calls, and so on and so forth.
Have you been able to give them